Alrighty, welcome everybody. This is Zutes Boxing Talk, the boxing show where we bring you sweet science straight up with no twists. And how's everybody doing out there this evening, Monday, April the 9th, 2018? Tonight we have boxers Lamont Roach Jr. and Ray Burroughs scheduled to appear. The call-in number is 914-803-4446. Well, let's get right to the boxing action of the weekend. It was a fantastic card on Showtime here in America. The premium sports channel Showtime was the big attraction of the weekend, and it delivered three televised fights. All three were intriguing. The super welterweight showdown between Julian Williams and Nathaniel Gallimore was not short on action, and Williams gets a W via majority decision. James DeGale comes back in a comeback fight against Caleb Truax. Remember, Truax upset him last year. This time around, DeGale scores a unanimous decision, but it was a tough fight. It was not an easy fight for DeGale. He got cut early from a headbutt, a bad cut, which was ruled incorrectly by referee Robert Byrd as a punch. So right off the bat, DeGale had that issue to worry about because since the cut was ruled by a punch, if they had to stop the fight, Truax would win via TKO. The replay clearly showed it was a headbutt. Perhaps Byrd was in a wrong position. He's a veteran, but he obviously made the wrong call, and it's very easy to get on him for doing a bad job. Maybe he did not see it. There is no replay in boxing where anybody could look in between rounds and change the call. And perhaps there should be, as long as the call can be made in that 1 minute period, because a lot of times with replay in these team sports, they really slow down the process in the NBA and baseball, and from what I understand in the NFL, a lot of these replays will take way too long. But if something like that, I think, could have been taken care of in between rounds and changed. But nonetheless, DeGale fought on. The cut didn't really get any better, but it didn't get any worse either. Truax had some cuts of his own. It was a tough fight. I thought it was a pretty close fight. DeGale even lost a point on the scorecards for using his shoulder, but still winds up with the majority. Still winds up with a unanimous decision, despite losing a point. And what I thought was a very close fight. And then in the main event, the best fight of the night, and in my opinion, goes on the short list for fight of the year. Jarrett Hurd wins a split decision over slightly favored Erizonde Lara. Now, I was pretty surprised that Lara was favored in this fight. I thought that most of the people that I spoke to were picking Hurd. I thought Hurd was the bigger guy, and he probably should have been favored. And I don't really play the gambling game much at all. But the fact that Hurd was an underdog really would have been a great opportunity for some people to make some money. And I would imagine a lot of money came down on Hurd, but I'm not sure. But fight goes the full 12 rounds. I thought Lara got off to a really good start and really did really good work. Hurd came on late. Obviously, the knockdown at the end decides the fight, split decision. Burt Clements scores it 114-113 for Lara. Glenn Feldman and Dave Moretti score at 114-113 for Hurd. It was supposed to be another title defense by Lara, and obviously Hurd was defending his version of the title. So now what all this means is Hurd walks away with three belts in the super middle weight, the super welterweight division, rather. WBA, IBO, which not many people are recognizing, and the IBF. But knockdown aside, I thought Lara could make a case to win that fight. I really didn't score it, but it seemed like Lara was putting away a lot of rounds early. And if we're going to use the Hagler-Leonard rule, if you lose the first 3 or 4 rounds, there's no way you could win the fight, right? Oh, wait a minute. Unless you're Floyd Mayweather Jr. against Marcos Maidana or Andre Ward against Sergey Kovalev, that rule goes out the window. So maybe not. I don't know. But the one thing that stuck out to me, and I'm not the only one saying this, was how much larger Jarrett Hurd was than Lara, which was, pretty eye popping. I mean, there's no way Jarrett Hurd was a super welterweight, 154-pound fighter. I mean, he looked so much bigger than Lara, and I'm not sure why the Showtime crew, from what I remember, did not make as big a deal of it. Barry Tompkins did the blow-by-blow for this one, taking Mauro Ranello's place, who typically does the fights for Showtime Championship Boxing. Tompkins usually gets the show box stuff. But, I like both guys. I mean, neither one of those guys really bothered me. I still kind of begrudge Tompkins a little bit for his, he wound up and hit him in the stomach call in the Leonard fight with Marvin. But other than that, I like him. I like Mauro, too. I don't think Mauro does a bad job. I think a lot of guys dislike him because he's come from the MMA. A lot of boxing guys in MMA don't mix. But whatever the case may be, nobody, from what I remember, really made a big deal about how much bigger Jarrett Hurd was. Maybe it's because they were more obsessed with show stats. Way too much show stats in this fight. Is that the first thing you need to do after such a great fight is show the CompuBox show stats or whatever you want to call them? I mean, it's getting ridiculous that to the point now that they're showing these numbers before they even read the scorecards. I mean, give me a break. Am I the only one that has a problem with it? If I am, I'll shut up. But I think it's ridiculous. But Lara loses a close split decision. Another loss for a well-known, well-skilled Cuban fighter. But in this case, you can't kill Lara. I think had he been called a winner, there would not have been much moaning and groaning. Whereas Ortiz got knocked out and Bartholomew got beat pretty soundly in his last fight. But the super welterweight division now belongs to Jarrett Hurd and Jermell Charlo. That should be a fantastic fight to unify some more titles. Saddam Ali is the WBO champion in that weight class. While the WBO might be considered the most respected sanctioning body at this point, not too many people are treating Saddam Ali as a champion over Charlo or Hurd. Perhaps he could get a fight with one of those guys and try and change that mindset. But if I'm handling Saddam Ali, I don't know how wise, unless it's a big payday, it is to get in the ring with a Charlo or a Hurd. And Hurd and Charlo is an interesting matchup. I like Charlo big time. But Hurd can make it interesting because he does have size and he does have what appears to be a pretty good chin. Two elements that I think that you need to beat a Jermell Charlo. So hopefully we could get that fight. And now James DeGale, as we move up to the super middleweight division, James DeGale is now a player again, and you got a lot of talent at the top of that division. Very top-heavy division, that super middleweight division. You have some really good champions. You got Gilberto Ramirez, you got Groves, who DeGale lost to, and you got David Benavidez. And you also got Jesse Hart, who has a big fight coming up. And maybe you could throw Jürgen Brammer in there, too. But, not much else. I think those are the guys that all have to fight each other, and then they probably won't in some cases. But it would be good for us to see that. Two fights at the top of the Showtime card that have a lot of implications moving forward. Hurd and Lara has to be made sooner rather than later, and hopefully there won't be that much of a problem. The politics of it, there should not be a problem with that fight getting made. There's no rival promoters, if you will, or companies going on it. Hurd and Lara, that fight is an easy fight to make, I think, and it's a fight we would all love to see. DeGale Groves again, we like to see that too. I don't think DeGale looked great and could have easily been called the loser. From what I watched, I might have to watch that again, but I definitely thought that DeGale was getting more credit on rounds for bravado than actually winning the rounds the way you're supposed to win. I thought a lot of those rounds were close, but we'll certainly see. But well, good stuff overall on the American televisions. There was some other stuff going on the undercard of that fight. Sergio Mora, who I've had on the show, who I have no qualms about saying I really enjoy him. He's a guy that's been killed over the years for being boring. I think he's a really good, skilled fighter. Doesn't have a lot of knockouts, but if you watch him, he's very, very, as long as he's not out-muscled, he does very well. And in this fight, he fought Alfredo Angulo and won a split decision over 8 rounds. I did not see this fight. I did not know it was on Facebook Live. I've been trying to see it since then, but I have not been able to. I would love to see it. I've had Sergio on the show, like I said, and Alfredo Angulo, the consensus might be that he should not be fighting anymore. From what I hear, he was pretty competitive, but now this is 2 losses in a row, 2 losses by decision in a row for Angulo, and his last loss was in 2016 against Freddie Hernandez, so it's been a long layoff for him. And Mora, last time we saw him, he was losing to Danny Jacobs, and he hasn't fought since 2016 in that fight. So a comeback fight for both. Mora gets the split decision win, and I'll see if I could get a look at that fight, and if we could talk to Sergio again, I think that would be fun too. But what will also be fun is talking to young prospect who has a fight coming up on April the 19th. Lamont Roach Jr. will be on right after this.
Odious, contemptible, deplorable. I'm speaking of offending in the personal grooming arena. Something I would, of course, consider quite beyond the pale. So I give you a new Red Guard Sports Stick, antiperspirant and deodorant. When one needs to seek maximum protection and a fresh new scent, one should grab oneself one of these Red Guard Sports Sticks, because one would hate to be considered malodorous by one's chums. Now, wouldn't one? New Red Guard Sports Sticks from Gillette. Anything less would be uncivilized.
Talk the Boxing Show, where we bring you sweet science straight up with no twist. And remember to follow the show on Blog Talk Radio, also on the gruelingtruth.net, and go to maxboxing.com for all your boxing fixes. And our next guest is a professional fighter in the super featherweight division, sports a record of 16-0 with 6 KOs. There's a big fight coming up April the 19th against the veteran Orlando Cruz. We had him on the show once before, but it's been a while. Welcome back, Lamont Roach Jr. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. How you guys doing?
We're doing great, and thank you for your time, especially with a fight coming up. I know how busy you are, and we appreciate you spending some time with us. And you had a pretty busy 2017, Lamont. You had, I think, 4 wins. And it was a very eclectic year for you. You went the distance, 10 rounds 2 times. You had a couple of first-round knockouts. Talk a little bit about the growth that you enjoyed in 2017?
Like you said, 2017 was busy. It was a good year for me. Just a lot of stepping stones. Every fight we got better. We increased, our power, our strength, our boxing wisdom, our boxing IQ, all the way up to this point. This is the one where the guys on paper supposed to make or break you. So we'll see.
Yeah, talk a little bit about the experience for the first time fighting a scheduled 10-rounder against Jesus A. Valdez. You go the full 10 rounds. Before that, you had a couple of fights that you ended early. This is your first scheduled 10-rounder, and you go the full 10 rounds. Talk about that experience.
That was a good experience. I'm glad I got the rounds in. The guy was tough. That guy was tough. Fight that usually fighters at the point where I was at don't take. He was tall for 130 pounds. He was about 5'10", 5'9", 5'10", southpaw, young, one loss. So people really wouldn't take that fight at the stage that I was at. I was would be somewhat of a no fight to young fighters, but of course we don't turn any fights down. We took that fight and we won the whole 10 rounds. We put on a dominant performance. He was pretty awkward, but getting them 10 rounds in felt good. I felt like I could have went 2 more.
Now, how aware were you about your opponent going in? Tall, awkward lefty who is tough in your first 10-round fight. Sounds like a bunch of ingredients that most people would avoid. You said we don't turn anything down. I've heard people turn down fights for those reasons. How much did you know about him going in? Were you fully aware of all of these things going into this fight?
We didn't know how tall he was. On paper, we were supposed to be the same height, so that was different. But other than that, they said he was a tough kid. He been the distance a couple times as well. He was pretty young. He only had 1 loss, so he came to win. So that's all we knew, and we implemented the game plan in the fight and we executed.
Now, going into the fight, preparing, it sounds like you knew he was a southpaw. Going to 10 rounds, did you have it in your mind that you wanted to go rounds in this fight? Is that how you prepared?
We always prepare for the distance no matter what. We always prepare to go 10 rounds because everyone isn't going to get knocked out. Some people are going to be tough, just like he was. He took a lot of shots. I heard him a lot of times in the fight. He was good at recovering. So we were ready to go 10. We knew he was southpaw, like you said. We knew he was a southpaw. And, we was always prepared. We always prepared to go 10. We always prepared to go any distance that we're supposed to. If the knockout presents itself, then we'll take it.
And talk about what it takes to really stay in your game plan and not get discouraged when you do hit a guy with some good shots and they take it well.
That's all about being mature in the boxing ring. That's that comes with experience. Guys, if you're gonna get frustrated because the guy's not going down, then mentally you weren't ready to come into the fight, from the beginning.
All righty. Now talk a little bit about your experiences with cutting weight, especially in a busy 2016. You stood right around 130, but in a lot of these fights you went slightly over 130. Moving forward, do you want to move up a little bit? Would you like to stay at 130? And what's it like making 130? Because you didn't make 130 in a few of these fights.
Only reason I didn't make 130 these fights is because the weight allowance wasn't at the limit. If the fight was for the championship that I had, the WBC Youth Championship, that I made 130, no problem. Making 130 is not a problem. I'm going to campaign at 130. I'm going to win a title at 130 and hopefully unify before I move up. If not, by the time we get a world championship, we'll see how my body feels, how much I grow, and that would depend on how I move up. But I won't move up until I win a championship.
All right, so talk a little bit about making the 130. Have you had any really horror stories with cutting weight up till now? And if not, how do you go about cutting weight? How do you make it easy for yourself?
No, we haven't had any, horror stories, no scares or anything like that. My strength and conditioning trainer, he has a pretty good system. We stay hydrated throughout camp. And down the stretch, we cut down on our water, and we still work. We still work at whatever weight we are. We still work. We still working while we're hydrated, so that helps shed the weight easy. Most people don't understand hydration is very key. Hydration gives you a lot of energy to withstand, the level of output that you have towards the end of camp. So that helps us a lot.
And after all these fights and some significant rounds in 2017, what areas do you think you improved the most on, and what areas do you think you still need work with?
Areas that I think I improved on, getting comfortable going 10 rounds. It wasn't a big deal, but the first time and the second time we have done it, it was pretty easy. So we got comfortable going the rounds. We improved on harder shots, closing the distance, and trying to get those guys out of there. Because some fights that I should have finished, like the first 10-round fight I went with Valdez, I should have finished him. I had him hurt a few times. I should have finished him. So we improved on that. And I think what's his name? The last guy I fought. What's his name again?
Ray Perez.
What's the guy's name? Yeah, Ray Perez. I think I said if I would have stepped on the gas more, picked it up more, in one of those rounds, I think I could have got him out of there too. But it comes with the game. We perform no matter whether we knock them out or go the whole 10. If we go the whole 10, we're gonna shut you out. So.
Yeah, and you definitely have stepped up when it comes to power. A lot of your knockouts have come in your more recent fights. A couple of first-round knockouts, Mike Tyson style. Not too many first-round knockouts in boxing. You had a couple of them. What was it like to get in there and get your opponent out there so quickly? How did that feel?
Oh, good, man. We work for it, whether it's in the first round or the last round. If it's a knockout, it's always good. Those quick first round knockouts were, pretty good. Especially the one for the youth WBC title. That was a pretty good moment. I stopped him to the body. I hit him with some good body shots. They were saying they never got hit that hard to the body before. So, that was pretty cool.
All righty, good stuff there. And talk about your fight coming up April the 19th in San Juan. It's a big card. You're fighting the veteran Orlando Cruz. He's been in there with some of the best. Talk a little bit about that fight.
We're ready. We're ready. We're always ready. This is the fight we've been waiting for to prove that we're ready for a title contention. So, I just have to go in there and prove myself.
Now, Cruz is a southpaw. You've mentioned already that you faced southpaws in the past and were successful. How different is your preparation when you're facing a guy who's on the wrong side?
We always have a game plan. So in the beginning of camp, we have a game plan that we implement throughout the whole camp, whether it's sparring, whether it's bag work, whether it's mid work, preparing mentally and physically for, a southpaw fighter. And, our plan is to go in there and execute the game plan. And you guys will see a pretty good match from me. I don't know about him, but from me, on my side, you're going to see what we've been working on.
All righty, sounds good. Now, what is it going to be like? What does it mean to you to fight in San Juan? We all know the problems that Puerto Rico has had. Cruz is from San Juan, so you can expect the crowd to be on his side, although I have a feeling you'll have some good representation there as well. But explain, this is a big fight in many ways, not just the talent in the ring. Explain what it's like to be a part of it.
I'm very grateful to be a part of the card. They're having a lot of cards in Puerto Rico, especially San Juan. You know, bringing the feeling back to Puerto Rico. You know, good feelings, good events, and you know, good times for the people around there. So, you know, I'm appreciative to put on a good show for the good people of Puerto Rico. And of course, you know, it's his hometown, so it gives me an extra chip on my shoulder as well.
Was there any apprehension at all from you or your team to take this fight, knowing knowing that it's in his backyard?
No, sir. Like I said, we don't turn down anything. We're ready for anything. We're gonna prepare. If we're prepared, we're ready for anything.
How aware are you about the officials assigned to this fight? Have they been assigned yet? And how much of a voice would your team have if there's somebody that you might be objective to?
We're not really worried about, you know, who's assigned to what at this stage right now. You know, our job is to go in there and do what we know how to do. We're not worried about, you know, certain judges, certain officials, certain refs, anything like that.
Is his fight also scheduled for 10?
Yes, it is.
And do you have to make the 130 to make this fight?
Yes, limit is 130 for sure.
All righty, so we'll be looking forward to that. Now, the 130-pound division is a pretty stacked division. However, one of the real big dogs, Lomachenko, appears to be moving up. But there's a lot of talent in that division nonetheless. Talk about some of the other fighters. Who do you think are some of the best fighters at 130 right now? And where do you think you stand at this moment against the best in the 130-pound division?
You know, the best at 130 are for sure, like the title holders, and the number one contenders, like what's his name, Machado. He's a WBA title holder. There's the IBF is vacant. I think Tevin Farmer is fighting for that against Billy Dibb. You know, I think Tevin Farmer will get the better of that. I think Tevin Farmer will be crowned champ after that fight. Miguel Berchelt is the WBC champion. He's a good fighter as well. And, of course, Lomachenko is the WBO champ. And he's moving up. So, you know, those guys are all good fighters. I want to place myself amongst those fighters as well. You know, you have other contenders that aren't champions due to certain complications, like, you know, Gervonta Davis. He lost his belt on the scale. Obviously, he's one of the better 130s too. You know, and those fighters like Vargas and who lost to Miguel Berchelt, the Japanese guy, and, you know, all those guys who had good fights and good wars at 130. Those guys are the top dogs, and I put myself amongst them. I have the same skill set, if not better. When I train, I can go 12 rounds for sure. I'll be prepared. So, you know, we're just waiting on our time. We're moving up the ranks. This fight is definitely important for that, and the way I perform should boost me up in the rankings for sure.
All righty, thank you for that. Just a couple of more questions before we let you go. One of the things I enjoy hearing from, especially fighters who are still active today, is some of the great sparring sessions that they can share stories with. Have you sparred with any of the top talent?
No, not at my weight. Usually, either I spar big or, you know, a weight class down. So I haven't sparred with any 130s for real.
All righty, and let the fans know where they could see the fight. Where is it going to be on television? And if they wanted to get to San Juan, how could they get tickets?
You can go on the Golden Boy website to get tickets. GoldenBoyPromotions.com. They have tickets on sale now. You can go grab them. They're pretty cheap too. So come out and have a nice time. It's in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I forgot the name of the Coliseum, but, you know, it's a pretty nice Coliseum. I've seen it online. The fight is going to be broadcast live on ESPN2 and ESPN Deportes at 9 p.m. Eastern time, I think. So make sure you catch me live. Thursday night, April 19th, and watch me get this W.
All righty, sounds good. Thank you, Lamont Roach Jr. What would you like to say in closing? You can plug any social media you want or anything else. Now's the time. Thank you again.
You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Search Lamont Roach Jr. It should be the first thing that pops up. Anybody who's watching the fight, expect the show. Anybody who don't know me, expect the show. I'm going to be your favorite boxer after this fight.
All righty, sounds good. Thank you, Lamont Roach Jr. Thank you for your time. You have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All righty. Pleasure is all ours, of course. All righty. Good stuff there. So April the 19th, ESPN2. And, boxing in the United States is still in some ways not treated like it used to be by the mainstream media. But you got to give ESPN credit. They're showing top-ranked cards. They're showing Golden Boy cards. They're showing cards on ESPN Deportes. So it's getting out there, and this should be a good fight. Lamont Roach is a good young talent. He's certainly improved since the last time he's been on this show's had some really spectacular stoppages, had showcased talent in a 10-round fight, a couple of 10-round fights, and he's fighting a guy who is not going to be an easy out, Orlando Cruz Jr. No, not Junior, just Orlando Cruz. He might have lost his last two fights, but that last fight with Lopez was a tough 10-rounder where he went the full distance, and he lost to the champ, Terry Flanagan, who was a weight class up at the 135. So he's coming back down again at 130. He's more accustomed to fighting at 130. He's going to be pumped up to perform well in his hometown. He has some intangibles in his favor. Roach obviously has more of the attributes in his favor, the youth, the skill set. I give all that to Roach. I think he is a favor there, but it's a fight where anything can happen, and I think the one thing that's guaranteed is we're going to see a lot of grit, a lot of determination, and a lot of skill. And we'll be back right after this. Alrighty, welcome back to Zutes Boxing Talk, the boxing show where we bring you sweet science straight up with no twist. And you can follow me on Twitter at Zute29. That's capital ZUTE 29. You could also follow the show on iTunes. Go to Anthony George Radio. Follow it on iTunes. You could also follow it on thegruelingtruth.net. We're all over the place. And one of the things that's been all over the place is the boxing news. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the big stories since we've last been on the air. And our last show was on Easter Sunday, so a lot has happened since then. But to remind you that show, we had a special interview with Franklin Thomas, and if you haven't heard that interview, go to the archives. I just about finished with the book now, Back from the Edge of Hell, and I have to tell you, it is very, very good, very interesting, very honest, an honest account of the life of Franklin Thomas, both inside and outside of the ring. Back from the Edge of Hell, and you can get that on Amazon. Very, very good book. But let's talk a little bit about the boxing action. First of all, let's start with something that should be positive. I spoke with Regis Prograis off the air, and Regis told me that he's still looking to fight Ramirez for the unification or the fight to decide the championship. Regis holds the interim title. Ramirez holds the real title, I guess, but he won't hold it if he doesn't fight Regis. It's complicated, but the thing is, the fans want to see that fight next. I think Bob Arum might not want to. He might want to simmer it a little bit more, but the fans don't want any simmering. Regis Prograis don't want any simmering. I'm not so sure Ramirez wants any simmering either. Last I talked to Regis, the fight was going to purse bid. He is still looking to get that fight. He is not interested in fighting on any undercard, but at the same time, he says that he's not going to rule anything out, and if that can't get done, he has other options. Can't really say what those options are, but he is hoping that this purse bid gets settled and the fight with him and Ramirez is made. Now, obviously, the biggest boxing news is some sad news. Really unfortunate because the big fight is now off. But, we saw this coming with Canelo and the failed test. I'm not sure we saw it happening this way with Canelo backing out before he even gets his hearing. But there were very few people who were still optimistic about this fight happening May the 5th between Triple G and Canelo. At best, people were calling for it in September, but I think that's a pipe dream now too. We are still waiting for the opponent to be named by Triple G. For Triple G, I should say, and we'll be waiting on that. It still has to be an HBO pay-per-view. I was told they tried to get it on regular HBO, but the money and budget and programming on HBO got in the way, so this fight has to go through as a pay-per-view. So you really want to make sure you get an opponent that's somewhat of a sell, that you could get some money back, bang for your buck, if you will, that you could get a gate. Who's going to go to this fight? At the very least, you want to have a good gate for this fight on May the 5th. But, let's not kid ourselves. I don't think that Canelo Triple G1 did great in terms of pay-per-view buys. I don't think it came close to 1 million buys. I don't even think it got 500,000 buys. So let's not make it sound like that we're losing a big, huge Mayweather-Pacquiao like pay-per-view gate. I think even some of Canelo's other fights did better in pay-per-view. So, but if you're going to ask fans to pay for something, you have to have something of some substance. So we'll definitely see about that. I have no information about who Triple G will fight. There was an opponent that was named that I think the Nevada State Athletic Commission turned down. I think it was a fighter who, I don't remember the guy's name at this point, but it was somebody who was a weight class below, and they didn't want any part of that from what I heard. So we'll definitely see. I'm sure we'll be hearing pretty soon about who the opponent is going to be. And if it's out there, I haven't seen it. But the other good news, and this is good news, is Crawford and Horn is going to be on ESPN. There's no pay-per-view for that. They wanted to make that pay-per-view. Oh wait, maybe I'm wrong. It's on ESPN Plus, is what I'm seeing. Is that a pay-per-view? I'm not sure. Hold on, folks. Let me read this again. I was just reading this now, and I thought it said ESPN. Yeah, it looks like it's not going to be a pay-per-view, but I'll wait on that until I get to read about that further. But nevertheless, the Crawford-Horn fight is going to happen, and it's good news, especially for Crawford fans. Many people feel Crawford is the best talent in boxing, if not the best, one of the best talents in boxing. And Horn certainly wants to get back in there and prove what he did against Pacquiao is no fluke. Now, the bad part about this fight as a selling standpoint is that a lot of people don't think Horn beat Pacquiao. There are some out there who think that Horn did beat Pacquiao. Mike Goodpaster, the godfather of the GruelandTruth.net, if you will, scored the fight for Horn, and some other people scored the fight for Horn. But the majority of people don't think Horn beat Pacquiao at an advanced age. And even if they did think that, not many people are thinking that Horn could beat Crawford, but Horn thinks he could beat Crawford. So that might be enough. And at the very least, you get to see a wonderful fighter in Crawford fight a guy who's not going to be an easy out, regardless of what you feel about Horn in his fight against Pacquiao. I don't think you could say that this is going to be a walk in the park for Crawford, in the sense that Horn is not going to lie down at the first sign of a vicious combination. He's going to try and fight back. He's going to make Crawford earn this win. And if it's not on pay-per-view, it's even better. Type Rank has done a good job of loading up cards on ESPN. Sometimes they're mismatches, but a lot of times, especially lately, they've turned down a lot of good fights for us to watch, and it being very light on our pocket. And obviously, Golden Boy has had some good fights on ESPN as well. So getting back to my original point, ESPN, which boxing really made ESPN in the early days, that was pretty much their bread and butter. They had the Super Bout, they had ESPN boxing on all the time, and it really was a mainstay. That and Sports Center and like some weird sports like skeet shooting was the big deal about ESPN. And ESPN kind of went away from boxing for a little bit. It always had the Friday night fights, but it never really treated boxing, I felt, the way it should. And now it's getting back on track with it, and that is a good sign. So those are the things to watch out for. And for this weekend, do we have anything worth discussing this weekend? We have a lot of good fights coming up towards the end of April. Anything that's going to keep us excited this weekend? We've got a couple of things here. On Thursday, April the 12th on ESPN2, there you go. ESPN churning out another card. The headliner is Francisco Vargas versus Rod Salka. That's a fight only the real diehards are going to tune in and enjoy, and that's what it's. Sometimes that's how it is. That's how it was back in the day when the USA fought. USA televised the Tuesday night fight. Friday, April the 13th on FS1, we got Jamal James versus Abel Ramos in a welterweight fight. That should be a good one. And Edna Cherry. I thought this fight was at a different date, but here we go. Edna Cherry takes on Dennis Galarza Friday night on FS1 too. So yeah, it's got a lot better for me now. I'm happy. I thought this was going to be a light weekend, but it's not. And ESPN has a card on Sunday morning. Ryoto Murata faces Blandamura for the WBA regular middleweight title. So and that's on early in the morning. It's probably taking place in Japan, and that's why. But that's great too. Now I know a lot of people are going crazy about the WBA and the regular title and all of that stuff. And in some ways, it's very warranted criticism. I get more upset about Showtime showing us show stats before the decision is even read. That's the kind of bird I am. But I can understand it. But hey, at the end of the day, fight fans want to see fights, and if they're showing us fights, they're not total mismatches, and there's a bogus belt at stake. At least if you think there's a bogus belt at stake, what's going to happen? You're going to watch the fight anyway. So stop the nonsense and thinking anybody's going to boycott anything. I used to play that game too. That game is not ever going to be won. And it's not going to be won when we get horrendous scorecards. It's not going to be won when CompuBox takes over a telecast. It's not going to be won when a sanctioning body does something bad. It's not going to be won when a fighter does something despicable, like cheat or not make weight or do something heinous outside of the ring. We're all going to go watch the fights anyway. So shut up and just watch the fights. Voice your opinion. You can certainly have a right to, but people who say they boycott very rarely do. And I'm not going to play that game anymore. So let's play this game. This date in history, April the 9th. On this date in history, April the 9th, 1978, Tony Danza. Yes, that Tony Danza stopped Tony Rodriguez in the first round. Now, Tony Danza obviously got his start in acting on Taxi. We've had Carlos Palomino on the show. Carlos Palomino portrayed a boxer on Taxi and fought Tony Danza. But Tony Danza fought as a professional and had some wins, a handful of wins. And on this date in 1978, that was one of them. In 1981, in somewhat of an upset, Mickey Goodwin beats Teddy Mann in 10 rounds. Now, this is a significant fight for me. Why? Because, as always, I like to link this date in history to the greatest fighter of all time, this man.
Odious, contemptible, deplorable.
That's right, Marvelous Marvin. We heard it already. We're not going to hear the whole thing again. But Mickey Goodwin was scheduled to fight Marvin Hagler, and I think this win was one of the reasons why he was working towards that fight over Teddy Mann. And Goodwin got hurt and was replaced by Caveman Lee. Caveman Lee was put on the map with that crazy fight against John LeCicero on ESPN. And when Hagler and Lee locked horns, it was the easiest title defense of Marvelous Marvin's career. His only title defense to end in a first-round stoppage. And it was a murderous performance by Marvin, and it really showed all of his skills. It showed how he was never out of range. I mean, it seemed like Caveman Lee was halfway across the ring when he got hit with some of Hagler's shots. Hagler, with that long reach, was never out of range. And to me, that's I know there's the fight with Leonard, the anniversary was just around the corner, and everybody wants to discuss that. And I'm telling you, if Hagler didn't have the long reach, he would have never been able to get to Leonard with that lateral movement. But he won that fight more or less on his stiff right jab. He took over that fight pretty much after the fourth round with his left jab. The only good round Leonard had after that was the sixth. Hagler had another little hiccup in the sixth where he really didn't do much. But Hagler's right jab and that great reach was the reason why I think, and I will debate with anybody, that he won that fight. Now, the Mickey Goodwin, he's fought a little bit after that, after having to pull out of the Hagler fight, but never really came into contention again. So on this date in history, 1981, Goodwin, probably his best win over Teddy Mann. Also on that card, Tony Tucker stopped Al Jones in one. Tony Tucker was a formidable heavyweight in the 1980s, as you all know, had some big victories. Probably his most notable and talked about victory till this day is the fight with Buster Douglas before Tokyo. He and Buster Douglas fought for the vacant IBF title, and Douglas was doing well in that fight, and then towards the end, people thought he basically quit. I mean, he was stopped. Tucker was landing punches on him, but that was an indication of Douglas having no heart, supposedly. And Tucker won away with the championship and eventually fought Tyson in another unification fight for Tyson. I think this was the last one for Tyson to get all the belts. Still had to fight Michael Spinks, who Ring Magazine still recognizes the champion. because he didn't lose in the ring. But the Tucker Tyson fight to me was one that could be studied for all time because Tucker had all the physical attributes, and Mike Tyson pretty much won that fight with his jab. I said Hagler beat Leonard with the execution of his jab. I thought Tyson out-jabbed Tucker and pretty much won that fight on his skills with his jab. Tucker landed a big right hand early in that fight, was never able to follow it up. Didn't really look like he wanted to engage, and Mike Tyson really couldn't figure out how to put a hurting on a big, tall guy who wasn't interested in fighting. I mean, let's be honest. Tony Tucker was not interested in fighting that night. And if you're not interested in fighting, like we've seen a lot, Sugar Ray Leonard wasn't interested in fighting Marvin Hagler. He said so himself. He's like, I'm not going to stop and fight you. No. You got to have some flair to you. I mean, and Tucker had no flair in that fight, and Tyson won an easy 12-round decision. I can't believe some people till this day still argue that Tucker beat Tyson. I just don't see it. So on this date in history, those two fights were on the same night, same card. Mickey Goodwin defeating Teddy Mann, Tony Tucker defeating Al Jones. In 1982, another upset. Gene Hatcher win 10 over Alfredo Escalera. Maybe it wasn't an upset because Hatcher was going into this fight undefeated, and Escalera was a little bit longer in the tooth, but Escalera was definitely the A side, and Hatcher beat him over 10 rounds. This is a fight that I really wish I saw. I don't know if there's footage out there of it. I'm going to have to do some investigating. I want to see it. Gene Hatcher, to me, is an interesting guy that I would love to watch more of his fights if they're out there. I saw a couple of them, and pretty interesting guy. And who can forget Escalera? I mean, a good fighter of the 70s, lost two tough, brutal, bloody, grueling fights with Alexis Arguello. And on this date, he drops a 10-round decision in 1982 over Gene Hatcher. And probably the most celebrated fight on this day in history, Evander Holyfield stops Carlos De Leon in 1988 to unify the Cruiserweight Championships. Holyfield still considered the greatest cruiserweight of all time. A lot of people will probably put him in the top 10 of heavyweights, if not definitely the top 20. I don't usually do that game with ranking fighters. I try and stay away from that, but I don't think you could question Holyfield's greatness as a heavyweight when he was on top of his game. I mean, do we really have to get into this deal of ranking fighter? First of all, I don't know how you could rank a fighter you never watched. That's number one. And I see Harry Greb and a lot of these other guys all over you never saw them. How could you rank them? What are you basing it on? And every list can be picked apart. Lists are all subjective. I don't care what anybody says. And I wrote a list article, which I very rarely do, and I'm never going to do again. But I wrote a list article for the Grueling Truth not that long ago, the 10 most effective jabs. And I said it was very subjective. I said that I did not include some guys who have had a history of having a great jab because I have seen little or no footage on them. I even put a bunch of guys in the honorable mention category that could easily have been in the top 10 of most effective jabs. Guys like Sonny Liston and the Klitschko brothers and some others that I'm forgetting right now. And of course, what do you see in the comments? Oh, this list is nonsense. Where's Larry Holmes? Where's Sonny Liston? And all this. And I put Larry Holmes fourth. Most people have him first. I put Larry Holmes fourth because, let's be honest, in some of his fights, Larry Holmes was out-jabbed. He was out-jabbed by Witherspoon. Some people thought he lost to Witherspoon. I think that fight was very close, but it was clear that Witherspoon showcased a better jab. He was clearly out-jabbed by Carl the Truth Williams. Should have lost that fight. In the first fight against Michael Spinks, he was out-hustled, and his jab did nothing in that fight. And after the Witherspoon fight, and even before, I mean, Larry Holmes avoided guys who had a good jab. I mean, he had a great jab against guys who didn't have one of their own. So that's why I ranked him a little lower. But, I mean, fourth is not a real disrespect, is it? And people lost their minds about it. I mean, that's why I'll never do a list again. It's a nonsense. It's a waste of time. People love it, want to talk about it, but you're not going to get it from me again. And a funny thing about that article is I wrote that article a long time ago when I was writing for Fight Saga, and the disaster that is Lee Cleveland refused to post it because I had Marvin Hagler second as the second most effective jab that I've ever saw. Look at the language that I ever saw. I try and stay away from the best of all time. I titled it Most Effective for the Grueling Truth. And this guy, Lee Cleveland, wouldn't post it because he didn't agree with it. I mean, what a joke. But he was a guy that had a bug up his ass about Hagler anyway. He was, of course, a Leonard fanboy, and we debated about that fight a bunch of times. And even when I wrote some of the more, I wrote an article for Fight Saga about some of the best trilogies, and I wrote about an underrated trilogy between Hagler and Willie the Worm Monroe, where Monroe beat Hagler in the first fight, a fight that there's no footage of, that some people, including Russell Pelton, Ron Christian, say that was the only fight they ever saw that Hagler really lost. Hagler went on to stop Monroe in the second fight in 12 rounds, and again, I think in the third fight in the first and second round. Maybe he went 3 rounds. I don't remember at this time. And there's footage of the entire third fight. It was a short fight, and footage of the second fight has just surfaced on YouTube, just the last couple of rounds. So that was great to see. But I talked about how Hagler might have suffered his only true defeat, and how he came back and beat Monroe twice. And what does this guy Lee Cleveland do? He alters the article and he throws things in there like Monroe wasn't the same fighter and those other. I didn't write that. Are you kidding me? Needless to say, my writing history with Fight Saga and Lee Cleveland didn't last too long. But my good pastor and the Grueling Truth and John Responti and MaxBoxing.com, even if they don't agree with what I'm writing, they put it up there as my own. So there you go. So back to Holyfield. I went on a rant for a long time there. Holyfield beats De Leon in his final appearance as a cruiserweight. He goes on to heavyweight fame, but this fight and the fight with Cowie the first time was some of the best cruiserweight fights in the short history of that division. And on this date in history, Evander Holyfield gets the job done. Okay, so when we come back, we're going to be speaking with Ray Burroughs right after this.
Angie Dundee, Ali's trainer, right next to me is saying it. You may hear him. Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier! The heavyweight champion is taking the mandatory 8 count, and Foreman is as poised as can be in a neutral corner.
Hey, this is Tony Lightning Lewis, your WBA, NEBA lightweight champion, and you're listening to Zutes Boxing Talk.
All righty, thank you, Tony, and let's get right back to it. My next guest is a professional fighter with 4 wins and 3 losses, and he has a big fight coming up, trying to get back on the winning track. He's had a couple of tough losses in a row, but his determination and confidence have not wavered. He's been on the show a couple of times before, and we're glad to have him back, Mr. Ray Burroughs. Welcome back to the show, Ray.
Oh, hello. How you doing? Nice to be back.
All right, thanks a lot. and we certainly enjoy talking with you. And you had a busy 2017 where you started off really well. You came back from a position in 2016 where one of your fights was overturned due to a positive drug test. You went on to win 2 fights in a row, was impressive. Then you lost a 10-rounder, and then in your last fight, you were stopped in the second round. Talk a little about all of those fights and where you're at now.
Let me start out with the suspension. Yeah, that was a tough time for me, and I had to respond back to that. And, during that time, took a lot of reflection out of me and the people I was around, so I had to, really just change up what I had to do with myself. And so I had a goal to come out the next fight, looking better than I once was, and show everybody who had supported me beforehand that was an honest mistake that I made, and I'm really dedicated to what I'm doing and what I love to do. So I ended up getting that first round knockout that fight, and it felt good, honestly. So it felt really good to show everybody that it was good. It was good. I appreciate the support and everything. Then my next fight, I ended up fighting an old sparring partner of mine, Tyrone Selders. We used to exchange, a few words here and there, and sparring and whatnot. I was an amateur at the time sparring him, and he was really good. At that time, I believe he fought Malcolm McAllister. I helped him spar against Malcolm McAllister and whatnot, and I thought he did good, but McAllister ended up stopping him. But he started out really fast, but so all that got into hand to hand and whatnot. So we ended up in a fight, exchanged some words. It was a good fight. I ended up going the distance with him, 4 out of 4, and then I actually felt real confident after that. So me and my team decided we was gonna fight for a title in September against Lamont Zute. No, my bad. Ruben Sanganov for the WBC youth title, middleweight title, and that fight ended up going to distance. I cutted him the second round. Excuse my language. I had cut him second round, and I started to open the cut up, but I honestly felt that I scored the better shots, clean shots. I look more of a professional than he did, and looking back at a box rec and whatnot, seeing the scorecards and everything, they had him winning every round, and I honestly feel like that's not the case. But we all have our opinions at the end of the day. So, but I mean, those 2 losses so far, that loss so far is just really put me ahead of my class so far, because you really don't lose, you actually learn from it and whatnot. And then just the last fight I just had, it was not September, my bad. It was February 20th at Mandalay Bay. Fought against a top standout in the amateur, forgot his name, Jonathan Gonzalez, Rodriguez, I believe. I forgot his last name. But Jonathan Esquivel, there we go. He's actually really good, and I wanted to see what I really had, especially coming off that loss. It's just one of them days I wasn't at my game, and he caught me slipping. It was a TKO, but I mean, I don't think should have been stopped. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. It was a technical mixed match, so I give him that. Because he made it appeal that, and I learned from that. So, the next fight is coming up. I'm actually fighting this Friday at Motor City Casino in Detroit against Isaiah Jones, who's just 5-0 with 3 knockouts. It's another tough test, So I don't believe in fighting losers, because I'm not a loser. My record don't show the full effect of how skillful I am, and I just continue to push myself. So I got to keep going. Motivation, determination is everything, and I just got to keep doing it.
All righty, good stuff there. Now, Ray, when you have those kinds of issues and you have some tough losses in the ring, it teaches us a lot of lessons. One of the things you already alluded to a little bit was the fact that you find out who is really supporting you, who's really in your corner. It's always an unfortunate experience, but at the end of the day, when you realize people were just hanging on to you, that's always a positive thing in the long run, and you really learn to cherish those people who stick by you, even if you are down and you have lost and you had issues. Have you experienced that?
Oh, yeah, honestly, it's a good feeling. Even the ones that supported me and don't really support me like they used to, I still show them love because they showed me that how you conduct yourself as a professional. If I conducted myself a certain way, everything that I started with would have still been intact. But we all know that life is not perfect or nothing is perfect. So I mean, it's all a learning lesson. I enjoy every bit of it, the ups and the downs. It's a roller coaster that I love doing. So I just learn from it. I love it. I love the experience.
Now you said your next fight is where?
In Motor City Casino, Detroit,
All right.
Michigan. Yes, sir.
So Isaiah Jones, undefeated kid from Detroit. You're taking this fight. You like to challenge yourself. But Ray, do you realize most managers handling fighters would say, especially since you just fought in February, uh, this is a setup for a losing situation. I would not put my fighter in this position. I get it. You want to do it. You want to challenge yourself. You want to prove that you have fought the best and not taken any cheapies. But has anybody tried to advise you that this might be a little bit too much, too soon with this kid in his hometown?
No, because the fight that it was no contest, I actually went to upstate to Rhode Island, and I knocked him out in the 6th round, and it was just me and my coach, just too deep, and that was a fight I shouldn't have had. That guy had 200 plus amateur fights where I only have 5 amateur fights. No, 6 to be exact, 6 amateur fights, and that was a losing record, 2-4, I believe. So that don't really say too much about the experience, hometown, where you at. If you're about business, you're about business, and that's what I'm at. And as y'all can see, that I still go up the ladder competition. I want to fight the best, and it's on record that I want my rematches from my opponents that I lost to, and they denied it. They denied my rematch. So it's not me that don't want to fight. They know what really happened, especially in your hometown. You know what really happened. So I mean, it's cool and all. I'm here to fight, and that's all I want to do. That's it.
All righty. Yeah, I mean, it's very admirable because a lot of times we criticize fighters that don't want to take those kinds of risks and are too pampered. So I'm not saying it in a negative way. I certainly admire it and appreciate what you're doing. But from the business side of it, and business people in boxing would probably say this is the wrong move. But you're making your own moves, and that's when we typically see fighters take more risks when they're more in charge of their career. So we appreciate you for that. So talk a little bit about Isaiah Jones as a fighter. What do you know about him, other than being undefeated?
I don't know too much about him, but I have seen a little bit of him, and he's really good. He's really technical. He's a really big body that fights on the inside and that can box. And I like that. I like to do it. So it's a perfect fit for me, but at the same time, it still pushes me. He's still a notch better than my last opponent, and they all get better and better. But at the same time, it's just all a learning lesson from them. He has whatever they have, plus what he has, and he is a great fighter. And I just want to put on a good show, and he is a great opponent to put on a show with. Truthfully, he is a very skilled fighter. I cannot take him lightly at all.
All right, good stuff there. Now, talk a little bit about what the weight limit is going to be looking on BoxRec. Jones has weighed in as heavy as 169. His last fight, he weighed in at 160. You're right around under 160 most of the time. What's the contracted weight for this fight?
Oh, the contract weight is no more than 165. So, I think I'm gonna come in at 165 just because. And yeah, he's a bigger body. Like I said, he's a bigger body to me. But what most people do not understand that I'm a bigger body as well. It's just that I just get the appealing off because I just give different angles and different subtleties about me. It makes me completely different. So it like I said, it's a good contest to show my efforts and skills against another admirable opponent, which still has to fight at the end of the day, and he knows what he's walking himself into. So my hat's off to him as well.
Now, you have not weighed in more than 160 and a half for any of your fights. If you come in at 165 for this fight, what would be your biggest benefits, do you think? Do you think you'll come in there trying to push him around a little bit?
But I try to come push around. I push everybody around naturally, so it doesn't matter what weight I'm at. I'm a bully, so it's evident. I'm just very finesseful at what I do. I don't push you around by putting my hands on you all the time, and I'm gonna let him figure out what I mean by that. But coming at 165, honestly, I feel a whole lot more comfortable. I will actually sit down on my punches, which I have a habit of not sitting down on my punches or trusting my defense. Because I'm frail at a lower weight, but I'm still big. I'm a big frail. It's so crazy, and it's hard to explain that. But at 165 or heavier in weight, I feel more comfortable that I can actually take more shots on my arms and my body and whatnot. I can actually put my body on the line a little bit more.
All right. So talk a little bit about how you've been preparing for this fight. You definitely look like somebody that's a gym rat, always in shape. What kind of sparring have you been able to do for this fight? And it's right around the corner on Friday. So what are the steps you're going to take for the rest of the week? What's the rest of the week going to be like for you?
Well, I got this phone call maybe for this fight Friday before last Friday. Week before last, So I just got in the gym instantly. Like I said, I stay in the gym. I just don't spar and do like other things. I work on I work on the fundamentals when I'm not training for a fight, So it's like, yeah, I'm always in the gym. But since I got the call, I probably got in about 3 days of sparring, about 2 or 3 opponents every time. But my ideology for this training camp, because it's a bigger body going to his body, and I actually stopped him. And I've been stopping all my sparring partners. So I have been just having like a little light. It's still light on my body right now. So I'm sparring again tomorrow and maybe day after, depends on how I'm feeling, so I can get my weight down and whatnot. So I should be ready to go by Friday, honestly.
All right. Now, how far off are you from your targeted weight at 165?
Well, I walk around at 175. It's just a 10-pound weight loss for me. It's not that much. Truthfully, I'm gonna give out the secrets. It's really a lot of water weight naturally, so it's not that much water, or it's not that much weight that I'm losing. So it's not me draining all my natural resources I have to. But right now I'm at 169. I'm right on weight. That's just like females I need to miss and a few more times to sweat, and I'm on weight honestly. So I'm right on the weight. I'm feeling good about my weight right now.
All righty, and you brought up an interesting aspect of boxing when guys have to take fights on short notice. A little earlier this year, we interviewed Montana Love, who took a fight on short notice against Tia and was successful. Although he was scheduled to fight somebody else, it was a step up. It was supposed to be a step up, and he fought marvelously. But talk a little bit about the times where you did have more time to prepare and have that full training camp. Obviously, it's an ideal situation, but we can't always get that. But what is the biggest benefit for you to have that full training camp, assuming that you've had that opportunity?
That's a good question. Because, a lot of people that ask me about boxing ask me about that all the time about my training camps, which is kind of neat that you asked me that. Which is, thank you. And truthfully, I actually get bored of my training camps. Too long. Like 4 weeks a month is too long for me. Truthfully, I honestly peak right around like day 4 or 5. Truthfully, when I honestly put my mind to it, I don't work out like a normal person. I do things different, and it's just honestly like the new wave, new generation of new boxers. I work out 4 to 5 times a day. Truthfully, so it's like even if it was a short notice fight for me, I would have still got my workouts in, and I would still been in shape. It don't take that long for me to get in shape, So it's like it's cool for me, but this short notice is actually a whole lot better for me because of the fact that I don't have to work out and put my body through so much pain or so much stress that it takes over a long period of time, and the mental faculties of that is really diminishing because like you have to focus so much on your diet, your workout, or how you really technique and how you recover. So it's really hard working on that, even if you have somebody doing it for you, because you still have to have the mental faculties to stay calm and relax and to soothe your mind and your body throughout the entire thing. And I love casual fans as well, but a lot of times they don't get to understand that it's more to boxing than boxing itself. It's more physical, emotional, mental, all the stuff that you can honestly think about is boxing, is life. And that's life, period. And it's a beautiful thing about it. So, I really say all that to say this. Boxing is a lifestyle. This is my life. So every day is the center around boxing, no matter what I'm doing. If I'm playing a video game, I'm thinking about, I got to set that up to get that. I got to set that up to get that. I got to be here to be, it's the same ideology when you in boxing. So every day is a training day, I guess.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. So it leads me to this. I started thinking about this while you were talking. So often we hear people talking, and it's mostly fighters or trainers talking about how there's a big difference between being in shape and being in fighting shape. Some guys are in shape, but they're not in fighting shape. What do you think about that statement? And has that been your experience?
Oh, man, I'm a young man. When I tell you that I feel like an old man when I'm out of shape compared to fighting shape, but like, oh, man, I'm a young man saying that. So I dearly depart the old folks saying that, and I not being disrespectful. But truthfully, fighting shape and being in shape is completely different because
so what do you have
always
to do to get into fighting shape? What do you have to do to get into fighting shape? What's the difference?
Really, you gotta fight. That's it. But like, I'm always in fighting shape. There be sometimes I would not go to the gym, but I'll just go just to spar alone. Like, if you look up some background on me, my favorite fighter is James Toney, and I believe in his method a lot of times. If you're not really just trying to work on your body, work on certain intangibles like speed, power, balance, or body functions, you don't need to be up in the gym. Truthfully, unless you're really just working on a certain skill. Truthfully, so if you're not in the gym sparring, you do not be in there at all. And every time I try to come spar, it's my job. I have to be able to fight all day. I don't worry about no drills. There's no cones in the ring. You know what I'm saying? There's only 2 people, and you have to fight. I'm always in fighting shape, but being in shape, that's hard, man. That's hard. That's hard being in shape.
Talk a little bit about the fight on Friday. If fans want to see it, do they have to go to the arena? Is there a way that they'll be able to see it on television or some kind of a streaming service? Do you have that information?
Oh, man. I honestly do not have that information, but I honestly can find out, and I can give you the information maybe tomorrow or some later on time, and I guess you can relay it out to everybody, but I do not have it on me at the time.
All righty. Thank you, Ray Burroughs. I just want to ask you, since you are such a boxing fan, and you sound like you really love the sport, and you have a great IQ for the sport. What did you think of the fight, if you did see it Saturday between Laura and Hurd? Not in the sense of who you thought won. It was a fantastic fight, but was there any part about it that was troubling to you in the aspect of Hurd looking so much bigger than his opponent?
Oh yeah, Hurd is a big body, and people don't understand. Hurd honestly started at 168, and he came down to 54. Was that 54? Yeah, I believe so. He started at a bigger weight, so that's not new to me. I've seen him fight. I like the way he looked. He got faster with the smaller weight change, but just looking at that, he ain't nobody to me still. So and I'm being respectful. I'm respectful of him, and that he's good enough that I want to fight. But at the same time, I'm not intimidated by nothing that he can do, because boxing is for the smaller man. Laura was outboxing him. He's mentally tough, but you hear around the rumor mill about Cuban fighters not being mentally tough when they start getting hands put on them. And so, I'm not gonna say no major name, but we just seen two of them. He was counting last Saturday, but it's just out there. So I mean, it's just it's a gladiator sport if you look at it. And that night the better man won, truthfully.
Right, but where I'm coming from is the fact that I don't think Hurd could fight at that weight if he had to weigh in the same day. He benefits from weighing in the day before and putting on so much weight in a position where it could be really dangerous, and it has been really dangerous. The Gotti Gamache fight, it comes to mind, and some others where a guy's fighting sometimes 2 weight classes above what the contract says, what he weighed in on the day before the fight. As a fighter, is any of that alarming to you?
It's alarming, but at the same time, it's not, because of the fact that at the end of the day, we spar guys that's 2 weight classes up, 2 weight classes under. It depends. I know a lot of middleweights, such as myself, spar heavyweights. It really depends on how you working, who you working with, stuff like that. So, I mean, we're accustomed to that. But I do not think that he will be able to fight at that weight class the same day. And, being up it's just physically impossible for him in that size and that stature in that short amount of time. I don't think he could. But, I mean, who knows? Who knows? It's 2018. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening.
Definitely, and other crazy stuff happening in boxing is the whole Triple G and Canelo affair. Would you like to weigh in on that whole saga?
Oh man, that is very thought provoking, because of the fact that I feel like that has happened to me. You know what I'm saying? My title fight, I felt like they should have drug tested, but there was no drug testing before or after the fight. And that was WBC sanctioned. You know what I'm saying? So I honestly feel like it's true, and I feel like that should be better tested, better cleaned up. Like I got suspended off of marijuana. That was in my system prior before, and I didn't even smoke. And that was because of the fact that I took that fight off with short notice as well. It just my system. I didn't use it, but in my own recreational time, I do personal things, and that's part of my personal life that I do. And like I said, we're all not perfect, but at the same time, I'm man enough to admit to my mistakes. You know what I'm saying? So that won't happen again. I won't disrespect the sport like that again. But at the same time, I feel like, if they was going to do that with me, I think they should do that to everybody else. And that's just me talking. I just want fair. I can honestly do a lot of dirty things to people in the ring just off of like retaliation, but I just try to keep it pure as I can. It's just I just feel like it should go back to the old times, like where the 60s or Sugar Ray Burroughs, same day, same weight classes. It's like early 1900s to 60s, stuff like that. The what to say, I wouldn't say the golden times of boxing. What did they call it that?
I think, yeah, the golden era. But I mean, in the '80s they weighed in the same day too. You don't have to go that far back for it to happen.
Yeah,
So,
and I just feel like they should bring back 15 rounds. Truthfully, you already seen videos online. They're doing the doghouse. You see that they physically can do it. Might as well bring it back because these rounds are too short. Period. I think the lowest rounds that a fighter should get is maybe 6 rounds. Truthfully, because a lot of these amateurs are looking like professionals. And I'm going back to say that because that I only have 6 amateur fights and only have 16 fights in total. If you count my professional career, my fights look completely different than you expected. If you look at my pedigree, so I just feel like we should start off. We already know what we're doing, so might as well just test it. We already competitive. Just let us do what we do. We're men at the end of the day, but men also have that little kid side of them. So let us be kids and let us play. That's it.
All righty. Thank you for your time, Ray Burroughs. The fight is Friday night. Isaiah Jones undefeated. Looking forward to it. Try and get that information about how we can see it. Excuse me. Now's the time for some closing thoughts. Any messages you want to say out there? What can we expect from you Friday night? Give us some of your social media. Now's the time to close it out. Thank you.
Oh, yes, sir. I just want to say that no matter what you've been through, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Just keep going, keep pushing. You got to see the vision and just keep grinding. And I'm a testament to that. If I can do it, you can, and I know you can because I did it. I'm doing it right now. And that's enough on the soft side, I guess. But my Instagram is Big Body Brolic, BigBodyBrolic. My Facebook is Ray Brolic, RayBrolic. My Twitter is kind of inappropriate, but you can still follow it, S0CHIP. And my Snapchat is also Grandmaster Ray, GRANDMASTERRAY. And there we go. That's all my social medias. I look forward to following y'all back and keep me updated if y'all, actually entertained by what I do. I try to entertain y'all in all aspects. So stay tuned to me, please. And this Friday, I plan on a knockout because I'm a knockout artist and I haven't had a knockout in a while, and I'm bloodthirsty, and I got to get another win. I'm hungry. Got to eat, so expect a knockout, expect some good appraisal. Yeah, something like that, I guess.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Looking forward to it and looking forward to having you on again. It's been great. Ray Burroughs, thank you, and have a great rest of your evening.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, and y'all enjoy your night as well.
All righty. Good stuff there. And, and I try and bring that to this show to bring on fighters who you might not have seen on TV or might not know unless you've seen them on the local scene. Getting the big name guys are always great, but when you get guys like Ray, you get some great stories as well. Not too many guys would be so willing, even in the worst of positions. We hear guys talk all the time about, the first thing a guy does before accepting a fight is they look on BoxRec to see what the guy is, what his record is. If he's a southpaw, they want to stay away. WrestlePuffs talks about this stuff all the time. And Ray's going right in there, guy's hometown, undefeated, bigger man, and coming off of a loss just in February, but he's willing to take the challenge. And those are the kind of guys I want to talk with. Alrighty, so it's been a wonderful show. Thank you again, Lamont Roach Jr. Thank you again, Ray Burroughs. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Zute29, capital ZUTE 29. Go to blogtalkradio.com, become a follower of the show. Go to Anthony George Radio on iTunes and follow the show. And remember to go to thegruelingtruth.net and maxboxing.com. Gruelingtruth.net is not just a boxing website. It has any sport you can think of. They got articles, podcasts, and everything for that. And Mike Pastor does a good job of facilitating all that, and our show appears on the archives there as well. So until